Israel comes under mounting pressure to pause as the death toll in Gaza passes 10,000, nearly half of them children, according to the Hamas-run health officials there. But not even Israel's staunchest ally seems able to convince them of that humanitarian track. President Biden spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu by phone today. This after the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken spent the weekend crisscrossing the region for urgent talks in Tel Aviv, Jordan, the West Bank and Iraq. He concluded today in Turkey.
We know the deep concern here for the terrible toll that Gaza is taking on Palestinians, on men, women and children in Gaza, innocent civilians. A concern that we share and that we're working on every single day. We've engaged the Israelis on steps that they can take to minimize civilian casualties.
Israeli officials are rejecting any pause, much less a ceasefire, saying that that would only benefit Hamas after the slaughter of 1,400, mostly civilians, 4 weeks ago. Listen to this from Israel's ambassador to the United Nations.
There is no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. In coordination with the US and the UN, we allowed the number of trucks entering Gaza now with food and medicines to reach almost 100 trucks every day. So we don't see the need for humanitarian pauses right now because it will only enable Hamas to rearm and regroup and prevent us from achieving our goal to destroy Hamas's terrorist capabilities.
So how is that being received around the world, especially in Arab capitals and on the streets? Jordan's Foreign Minister, Ayman met Blinken this weekend, and now he's with King Abdullah at EU headquarters, trying to press for getting more aid into Gaza. Jordan says it's delivering aid itself now. Its Air Force dropped medical aid into Gaza, into a hospital early this morning. Foreign Minister, welcome back to our programme. Can I first start by asking you, it must have taken some coordination and quite a deliberate stance to start airdropping into Gaza. Is this a one-off or are you going to continue to do it?
Well, it did take some coordination, Krishan, and we dropped essential supplies to a field hospital that we've had in Gaza since 2009. Obviously, those supplies would only last for so long, given the enormity of the humanitarian challenge there is. And we hope not only will we be able to do more of that, but that all of us in the international community come together to pressure for delivering the necessary supplies to Gaza, because contrary to what the Israeli rep to the UN just said, there is a humanitarian catastrophe. And I think if he doesn't see that, I can only explain this by saying it seems he doesn't see Palestinians as humans. He's talking about 100 trucks, when the average before this catastrophic war started was about 500 trucks per day, and then that was not enough. So just to say that there is no humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza speaks to the complete blindness of this person to what's happening in Gaza.
But clearly also what he's saying doesn't match reality, because you obviously had to coordinate with Israel. So the Israeli military, the Israeli government had to presumably acknowledge that there is a humanitarian catastrophe, no matter what their UN ambassador says.
Well, I mean, we would like to see the acknowledgement translated into effective, impactful action on the ground. People are dying from the Israeli bombs, but they're also dying from the lack of water, the lack of medicine, the very, very dangerous situation at hospitals where a lot of them are simply not functioning beyond the basic essential. So if there is the acknowledgement, we'd like to see that translated in real action that does even begin to address the catastrophic situation we have in Gaza.
Foreign Minister, you're with King Abdullah in EU headquarters. What have you managed to extract from them in terms of stronger humanitarian deliveries? Tell me what the mission is for Jordan there in Brussels right now.
Well, Krishan, we just arrived. As you said, His Majesty is here. We just met with the Belgian Prime Minister. We met with the Secretary General of NATO. Tomorrow there'll be meetings at the EU, and our message is clear and simple. This war on Gaza has to stop. A ceasefire is a must. Delivery of sufficient and sustained humanitarian supplies is a responsibility, is a human duty, let alone a legal obligation by Israel as an occupying power. So this is the message on which we're working, and obviously trying to put things in context as to why we are here, and that the only way out of this nightmare, this catastrophe, is for the war to stop, and the needs of Gazans who've been suffering even before this war started be addressed. And then we all look at how we can get to a situation where what happened never happens again, and that can only happen through a peace plan that would fulfill the rights of the Palestinians to freedom and will address the Israeli concerns as well.
But regarding peace, obviously the West Bank, which is right next to you, is part of the occupied West Bank, is meant to be part of a Palestinian state. Right now, there are two things happening. Settlers and soldiers are basically, there's 150 Palestinians dead, according to authorities on the West Bank, and they're being moved away from their land in some instances, several hundred. Do you think that there is a deliberate plan, as many people do believe, that the settlers who are in charge, essentially, of the government are wanting to, under this cover, create their own ideological end, to have the West Bank for themselves? Do you believe that's the case, or is it just the fallout from this terrible war that's going on?
If I may first, Kristian, just say unequivocally that we are against anti-Semitism, we are against Islamophobia, we condemn that, we warn against it, and we urge all of us to come together and really clearly say that this is not a Muslim-Jewish war. This is a war between an occupier and an occupied people. So I just want to make clear that we have been warning against this culture of hate. We condemn anti-Semitism as much as we condemn Islamophobia. That said, going to the West Bank, even before this vicious cycle of violence and war started, there's been a systematic Israeli policy to kill any aspiration for the Palestinian people for statehood. Prime Minister Netanyahu said it himself. In the Israeli government, you have cabinet ministers, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, who publicly, openly called for wiping out the Palestinian people. So settlers' terrorism, and I'm calling it settler terrorism because it has been there for a while. And now with this new unfortunate, tragic circumstances, we're seeing more of that. We're seeing people settlers' attacks increasing. This year, by the way, is the bloodiest year for Palestinians on the West Bank in over decades. And this speaks again to the complete absence of political horizons and to the unleashing of settlers by cabinet members who speak that rhetoric of hate, who's just fueling those kind of movement. If you look at facts on the ground, there's been over 90,000 new settlers coming to the West Bank since 2019. Area C has been completely also being incrementally taken away from the Palestinians. Settler expansion is continuing. The number of settlement expansion, or the amount of settlement expansion we've seen in the past few years, is unprecedented for decades. Confiscation of land is the same. Encroachment on the holy sites are the same. So I think there is a group within Israel, the radicals, the religious Zionists, who are pushing for confrontation. And that does not help Israel. That does not help us. That does not help the Palestinians. So I think everybody needs to stand up to their responsibility here and stop these kind of actions. And if the West Bank explodes, then you're looking at about a broader conflict that is just going to affect everybody in the region. So that has got to stop.